have you been bitten by the Spielbug, Elliot? It's the summer. The throwback to old 80s cinema, shall we say, the heyday of Lucasian and Spielbergian times. No. Have you? Yeah, we're here, of course, on the Thoughtcast to talk about mainly some Mando, some Star. It's like our Star Wars check-in periodically, Elliot. So thank you for helping me out with this. Yeah, the state of the wars on this 250th anniversary of our union.
The stars, they're still fighting.
Yeah, they're all warring up in the stars. No, it's good to catch up with you because I know you keep well abreast of all things Star Wars and sort of genre entertainment. So you agreed to come and have a little chat here, Thoughtcast conversations about animation. So this will be super fun. Just briefly hear some thoughts. And you, how many times have you seen The Mandalorian and Grogu?
I saw it twice. One time I saw it in the AMC like Dolby version,
Nice.
Which is actually I think becoming my preferred way to see stuff. I like IMAX, but I feel like this is gonna just be an ad for Dolby. But
No,
I
that's
feel
fine.
like the speakers are like what you really are getting from the theater experience. Like screen size is like I mean, there's big screens, but
Mhm.
if you can feel the sound in the theater, I feel like that's the thing. Anyway, we watched it in Dolby, had a good time, and then I watched it in Screen X, this like new kind of version that's coming out where there's the main screen at the back of the theater, like a normal movie theater, and then they project on the walls on the side. So you sort of feel like you're in a fish tank where like the movie is happening all around you. It
Okay.
was pretty cool, but
Oh.
it was only active for some of the scenes. So you'd be like watching the movie, and then at a certain scene, usually like the space stuff, they would like extend on both sides of the theater, and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm in space now." But then as soon as they go somewhere else, or the scene switches, like they kill those screens, you're like, "Oh wait, I was just watching a movie." Um, it was cool, but it was a little distracting too. And I'm not sure where that side footage comes from. If that's like the IMAX version that they've wrapped around, or if they're like AI generating extra like goodies on the side. I don't know. It was weird. But
Boy.
watched it twice, enjoyed it both times. I think the first watch through, I was a little confused about uh there was just a lot of like, oh, okay, this is not quite what I thought it was gonna be. And then I think the second time I had like put all of those aside and I was like, oh, okay, this is a fun time here.
Hmm.
A roller coaster.
Okay, I saw it once in 3D. The
Ooh,
other time was standard format in the local theater here. We don't have anything too fancy, but
yeah,
kind of funny that you saw it both times and sort of a specialty,
yeah.
which is always fun to take advantage of. Well, you got the AMC membership, and then
A
you
list?
know yeah. That's how you saw the both times, right? You know,
Yeah.
at AMC, and like they obviously have a lot of options in LA there. So uh
How was the 3D experience? Do you
I,
usually see stuff in 3D?
I like 3D. I like the added depth. I don't know. It
Mm,
helps. I don't know. Allow my eyes to relax a little bit. I think if I can kind of see things in a natural way
mm,
with that extra, um, depth of field. Um, in certain experiences, if it's done well, and this was
yeah.
it had all the bells and whistles, this movie. But yeah, the IMAX thing, I mean, I really had a positive experience earlier in the year at an IMAX screening of a Formula One race.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sound, the picture just kind of envelops you. but I think yeah, the sound is kind of the key thing when it comes to I think just the capital A experience at the movie theater, and I think the Dolby has always delivered that whenever I've tried it. Well, always at the spearhead of uh, exhibition technology with Star Wars and their various innovations that they've brought to the whole movie theater experience. So it's certainly relevant to this conversation. And I love nerding out about this type of thing a lot. But that Screen X thing, yeah, it does kind of sound like a sort of job for AI if you're just kind of generating random stuff to add to the surroundings, but not really. I mean, you're not going to do a full production value level experience in that format necessarily because it's just so limited use. I mean, how many people are actually getting to experience this thing? But sometimes I don't
Yeah.
know.
And how much are they like putting into the technology of like, well, we're already shooting with IMAX cameras. Do we have side firing cameras on the main cam? I don't think so. Like, but I don't know what exactly they're using for those sides. It might just be wraparound footage. But to me, it
Yeah.
kind of felt like having like, the light sync LEDs around your TV just kind of like
Yeah.
added more to the sides. It was interesting, but I agree. I don't think they're doing anything specifically for it.
There's
Uh,
the 3D camera techno or not 3D 360 degree. Like I don't know, there's that
other,
one. Yeah, I'm thinking, Disney World. There's like that China um, attraction where that's shot in that 360-degree theater. And there's a few other things that were made using that kind of technology. It was a Disney effort back
oh,
in.
I guess that's true. There are 360-degree cameras out there. Uh, yeah,
It's just not
yeah,
very practical.
yeah. It would be a weird thing to like deal with production wise, but yeah, I guess that it is possible. I mean, but you're right. Like Star Wars is definitely one of those franchises that is always pushing the envelope with like effects and I feel like Star Wars and like Christopher Nolan are responsible for like a lot of the the like effects
Yeah.
innovation across the industry. So it's cool
Yeah.
to see some of the stuff that they came out with this time.
And we'll be touching a bit on Spielberg, but I feel like he's more kind of been along for the ride. Like George Lucas would invent this stuff, and then his pal Spielberg would, adopt it, or he and
Hmm.
Lucas explicitly partnered on certain things, like Indiana Jones, and that kind of technology would get adopted. And I'm sure, like digital sound and stuff that had probably all been implemented by the time of maybe Last Crusade, the end of the 80s.
Mm.
Around that time would make sense. They were digitizing sound by then. And then also the advent of digital cameras that were used for filming that Lucas started using in episode two, just basically way earlier than anyone else on that kind of scale. So I don't know. Have you watched like episodes 2 and 3, which were early adopters of digital film cameras? And I don't know, notice any artifacts related to that technology specifically? Because I've never really noticed degradation. I mean, those movies look so artificial. Well, episode 2, especially with all like the CGI clone troopers and droids and stuff, it's pretty much an animated movie, and at a time at a time when that technology just wasn't all that photoreal either. So
Hmm.
it's got its own unique look to it. But the digital photography specifically has never really stood out to me. But I haven't really inspected it too closely.
It's funny that this conversation comes up now because 2 weeks ago I did a marathon of the prequels
Hmm.
with a friend of mine who had only seen them like one or two times. And of course, I've seen them like a bajillion times and seeing them all kind of in order. was very interesting because I started to pick up on some of the like, oh, okay, that like kind of is a little different in this one. And you can really see the like tech kind of increase. Like Phantom Menace has a lot of scenes where there are like kind of like simpler aliens in the background, or you can tell things that they went through and like George Lucas edited like later on. Like there's a scene in Tatooine where they're going around and there's a pretty bad looking like Ronto that shows up and is like walking through the sand port.
Sure.
The droids and stuff all have this sort of uh they feel like they exist in kind of like a lightless environment where like the sun doesn't reflect on them quite correctly and whatnot.
Wow.
But the it's close. Like it's you have to like really be looking at it and like looking for that sort of thing. And there are a couple of scenes where like it's it still looks really really good, like the fight where they jump out of the balcony and come down and there's like the droids who are escorting the prisoners, like
Mm.
those look great. There are shadows on everything. And then there's like the hallway scene in at the beginning where they're like
Um,
just cutting through the droids, and you can tell that they like didn't quite spend the like rendering budget on those ones, because you're like, oh, they those that's a green screen right there.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for being all like digital assets, it's pretty crazy what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah. Not as much simulate, probably no like ray tracing back then or anything. But yeah, like the battlefield scenes out in the broad daylight, yeah, the droids, I'm sure that was all very just kind of estimated the values of the lighting and coloring. And yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah, I guess that was, yeah, large scale battlefields and computer animation um,
But
were starting to be, yeah.
to think back to that being like 1999 though is pretty crazy. Like it still holds up quite well. Especially that like out exterior like grassland battle. Like they have the blades of grass moving around with the air from the tanks and stuff, and like yeah, it's really well. And it gets better
Yeah.
throughout all of the movies. Like each one just kind of builds on it until like by episode 3 it's you see it more with the clones because those are clearly an actor in a suit on a green screen. It's crazy that they didn't build any of the clone trooper armors, but
Yeah, you get a lot more, deliberate callbacks to the style of the original trilogy. Nowadays, that's just
mhm.
been, their prerogative to really, well, it started out a lot less friendly to prequel aesthetics when Disney took over as sort of like a rebuttal to that era, and what we've seen is a lot of backlash. But clearly, fan base has shown that there's a lot of people who love the prequels and embrace them. So now, it's just become kind of a nice melding of the two, I feel, with
Yeah.
Star Wars. Yeah. And I don't know, we did have explicit characters brought back from the prequels in this new Mandalorian and Grogu, or at least like the battle droids.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're obviously the Clone Wars cartoon has some transplants that Embo bounty hunter characters originally from the Clone Wars TV series.
And
Yeah.
Road of the Hut.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. And then Zeb Aurelius, the crazy looking, originally was like a concept for Chewbacca from the concept artist Ralph McQuarrie for the original Star Wars. That was Star Wars Rebels, of course, and so lots of influences brought in to Mando. I mean, the suit of Mandalorian, that's all practical, and I don't know. Trying to think of any other like designs or assets or pieces of iconography really stood out that were particular to one segment of Star Wars over another. But of course, the practical models of the ships and stuff too, they incorporated a bit of that. So we'll talk a bit about that. But yeah, Elliot, what stood out to you design wise?
I was really struck by the number. Well, I was struck by the starfighters that they were using. They definitely like somebody on this movie really wanted to make a starfighter movie and like wasn't they didn't they were stuck making a Mandalorian movie. They had some really great looking like X-wings. There was a B-wing parked on the thing. The U-wing from Rogue One, where it was introduced, just keeps coming back. Disney loves that ship. They just like keep coming with it. Um, the Razor Crest was really cool too to see that back. This movie ended up kind of being like a reset for Mando. They're like, give him his ship back, give him his armor back, give him his gun back. Um, I feel like the ships were pretty cool. I really liked the callbacks to the prequels with the Hut like droid security forces where they had these like amalgamation droids of like, you know, if you look closely, you're like, oh, that's a B2 super battle droid with like a droid commando head welded on and like a flamethrower arm, like just these weird, like reminded me of the mutant toys from Toy Story 1 of like somebody just cut and pasted pieces onto them, but they
Yeah.
looked really sweet. And I loved seeing, speaking of Phantom Menace, those droid speeder bikes, the little stap vehicles. They
Oh,
have
yeah.
a.
Ah. Oh, that was a big callback. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I don't think we've seen those in any other live action movies except for Phantom. So it was fun to get those back, and they have such a sweet speeder bike sound to them,
Very
going
distinctive.
across the screen. Um, the Anzellans were fun, bringing those guys back from the sequel series,
Yes.
actually. That was a really sweet callback, and I love when Star Wars messes with scale like that. Of like, oh, these aliens are like little tiny little guys. They there's an episode of the Clone Wars where they kind of mess around with that, and they have a guy who is small enough to ride around inside of an astromech droid. Was kind of thinking they might end up doing that, but they had a ship doing it instead, which was fun. Um,
Yeah, the Jetson ship.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was really
Oh,
fun.
well, I guess that they had the spaceship that, of course, isn't large enough really to fit a non-Ancella, and then their speeder was had the sound effect of the Jetsons' little
Yes,
flying
yeah, they
car.
had their little
Yeah,
speeder that they roll up on Mando at
yeah.
his house. Yeah. Those were, I think, the big standouts for me. The oh, the monster in the hut's little pit. First of all, I love that every hut just has like a monster pit for dropping people into. I
Hmm.
think that's a great trope. And the like weird snake guy, I think was also a Ralph McQuarrie concept. Um, I think for Dagobah, it was supposed to be
Okay.
that they ended up not using. So really cool. Love it when they pull like old like ideas out and recycle them into something. I feel like that was a pretty sweet monster to bring into the universe.
Okay. Well, yeah, you never really get to see a good look of the creature from Empire Strikes Back that
Hmm.
sucks in R2D2, and bit of classic limitations of that 1980s era filmmaking. But yeah, here you get this dragon snake creature in full glory, and yeah, the typical booby trap in the hut, in their palace there, or um, their headquarters. And yeah, I don't know. There was an interesting note, like, okay, they send Din Djarin down into the hut. They drop him into the pit, and then I guess it's not at first that they sick the dragon snake on him, and I think it's sort of unclear as to how much control they have over this dragon snake. They might just kind of live down there.
Yeah. Well, because first they have these like tribal dudes, the like swamp like slug kind of looking guys
the
fighting with the
Amani.
spears.
Were
The
you
Amani.
were you familiar with that species? Because I remember them from certain reference material. They're really only barely visible, or there's like one of them in the background of Jabba's palace. But they're really cool design.
Oh, they're in the
Yeah.
originals?
Yeah, there is one.
Oh.
He is visible on screen, the Amana Man, and there was like a toy released. Yeah, they've got a bunch of them here, and they're based on flatworm called a planarian. And it's kind of a crazy aspect of this species where, like, if you dissect them or bisect them in the right way, they can split into two fully independent new planarians.
Oh, like earthworms. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but like there's no sign of like damage or anything. I don't know, with earthworms. Is that how it works? That like they'll both continue living a normal life? I don't know, but the planarians are a little more advanced in their biology, I think, and supposedly these Amani can do the same thing, like in the reference material. Like if you chop one in half right down the middle, it'll split into two independent.
That's wild. Yeah, I think I missed that because I had assumed that these were new species that they added, but that's cool that they're in the originals actually.
Yeah. So yeah, they stick the Amani on Din Djarin. They like give him his helmet back too. I think that was maybe after he beats the. Okay, here's the thing, and this is like one of those, YouTube Ryan George pitch meeting critiques, and I guess he raises some good. I don't watch that kind of thing religiously because I think it's sort of brain rot. But why did they give him his helmet back? Well, he did beat those Amani, and maybe they wanted to get rid of the dragon snake because it was just too big and too much of a nuisance. And so they were like, okay, you proved yourself worthy to maybe be pest control for us here with this. So they gave him his helmet back so he have a better chance of taking out the giant snake that was maybe getting a little out of control. But I don't know. That's just some headcanon.
Yeah, I like that because it's clearly a decision that they made because like he's got to run away, and if he runs away without his helmet, he's not going to get his helmet back for like the rest of the movie. So he's got to get it one way or the other.
Yeah, because the helmet, that's like the perfect trophy. But then they also, in the dialogue kind of implies that they're not necessarily wanting to kill him right away. They want to see, or they want him to suffer and Grogu to. There's the whole thing. They're not going to kill Rhoda right away. They're going to torture him for centuries. And then there's also, they know that Grogu is a kind of species that lives for centuries. And I don't know that whether Din Djarin dies right then and there, he's still going to have to, I don't know, be separated from Grogu at some point due to just their difference in lifespan. Or it's kind of confused. I don't know thematically if there was something really deeper they were going for there, but
my headcanon there was that the huts, because Jabba has that line in Return of the Jedi where he's like, or somebody says the Sarlacc will like digest you for like 100 years or something. So my headcanon is that like the huts are just like obsessed with long-term suffering and they want to like would rather impose that as a condition than like outright kill people.
Okay.
Um, so
Yeah, Dave Filoni definitely thought about this, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, the Sarlacc will digest you over approximately 1,000 years. C-3PO says, but
Mhm.
like, so wait, you might only live to be however many decades old, but in some of the ancillary material, like I like to, the expanded universe states that like there are preservation um, methods within the digestive system of the Sarlacc that keep you
Yeah.
alive arbitrarily.
If I if I remember correctly in Legends, it was like extra horrifying because it was like the Sarlacc is actually digesting your life force, not necessarily like your organic matter. So like the Sarlacc keeps you alive to like steal your life energy. It was real dark.
That's great. That's yeah, like very Cthulhu-esque.
Hmm.
And then Eldritch horror kind of thing, and I could see how like maybe there are sort of tendrils that kind of latch onto your nervous system. So like, yeah, your brain stem is like almost connected to this thing, and that's why like your consciousness gets to
Hmm.
you know remain even if you're well beyond your natural lifespan for your species. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting sci-fi concept. Because when I first heard that you would be alive for those 1,000 years, I was like, what? Why wouldn't you just die after
Hmm.
you've died of old age, basically? But crazy stuff, might be
It
possible.
would be it would be like a really dark and scary way for them to like bring back an old villain too, of be like, well, they would have died normally, but they were stuck in a sarlacc for 700 years and escaped.
Oh boy,
They were crazy during that time.
we gotta cut this out because somebody will steal this idea. Copyright.
Disney's like, you're hired. Get in here.
Yeah, geez.
Somehow Palpatine returns again.
Oh, that you're so not far off at all. um,
Another really fun callback was the Dejarik game.
yeah, of course, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, right on the face of it, I think it was in all of the trailers and stuff too. But I mean, like the little chess game that they're playing on the Falcon in episode 4 is actually just like a scaled down version of like the real gladiatorial matches. And I guess the it was interesting that they were like, oh yeah, all of these creatures are like the official creatures for this like death game.
It sort of brushed up for me. I was like, this is a little too like convenient, and of
Hmm.
course, like this fan servicey Easter egg where, okay, Ginger, with minimal explanation, he just calls out, "Oh, you're doing a Dejaric match," and like. I guess this is such a common thing.
Yeah.
Gladiatorial arenas are such a commonplace experience in Star Wars or something, and then the fact that it has transferred to, I guess it's a chicken or the egg thing with the chess game, but also like they happen to all be just the same creatures from
Yeah.
scene famous nostalgic scene from the original Star. It's like, can't you just mix it up a little bit, make it a little
Yeah.
less
It's
obvious?
like, oh, we couldn't get that one crazy like shock guy, so we have this other one. I would have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah.
And honestly, I don't even know the creatures from the Dejaric table well enough to even have known if they were using all of them or not.
No.
Apparently, I think they all were
Hmm.
from that original. Yeah, so I mean, it was a fun moment, but kind of fan servicey, and I guess it was kind of nice as like the one moment the movie kind of earned its PG-13 rating once the monsters
Hmm.
got out and started like tearing into the crowd a little bit.
Oh yeah, that was pretty fun.
But otherwise, I thought the movie was kind of like tame overall action. Why, it was a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like it being a Star Wars, I guess we'll get into the critiques here. It didn't really take a whole lot of chances with things in terms of like rocking the boat, really. It was overall a pretty tame Star Wars adventure. I don't think that there were a lot of things about it that really changed much. The ending was a little wild, like that the Rebel Alliance or the New Republic would just wipe out a hut.
I love,
Uh,
I love.
they just freaking nuked the hut like main city area thing. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Doesn't that start a war too? Like,
I just think it's like, yeah, these criminal underworlds. First off, the Hut consortium's kind of fallen on hard times after
hmm
Jabba's dead, and now there are different factions vying for power. So, like, yeah, the main military force of the galaxy is now able to just kind of come in, no casualties. It's just such a
easy.
routine, yeah. Which I liked. I think it was kind of fun to see them at their peak operationally as as a military might. But yeah, did you think it could have used a little bit more peril that moment?
I would have liked to see like a little bit more of a battle for the New Republic to take out the Huts. I mean,
Hmm.
they're in, especially like the EU and whatnot. Obviously, they're post Jabba. They're not at their strongest, but like they still had like slave like fleets and stuff. Like, it would have been fun to like have had there be like a real struggle to get Mando and Grogu out. It seemed like a bit of a cakewalk for them to just fly in there and nuke the place, which is also cool, but I would have liked to see like a couple deaths.
Yeah, I would have kind of felt bad for these old like cameo the directors, and I mean some of them like they'll demand like a death scene because they like to do ham it up, of course, for the
Yeah, yeah.
camera. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's fun to just see those guys, some of those guys like who are more behind the camera show up, and then yeah, just kind of like lazily I don't know, but of course, I love all space combat and stuff. So
hmm
either way would have been fun. I guess
Yeah.
there was like a original Y-wing design that was like constructed for a New Hope and used as like the basis model for the full size Y wings that they built in Elstree Studios
Mm.
in the UK. It was meant to be like an on screen prop, but instead they used it for reference on set, and then that has sort of gone on to have like a cult following online because this Y wing is slightly different than the ones we see on screen in
Oh,
model form
interesting.
in the original. Yeah, so I don't know if you caught that's a very very niche bit of trivia, but it's a Y wing with red accents instead of gold that
Mm.
shows up in that final battle.
Hmm. That's
So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't see a B wing in action, which I love. B wing is in like the swivel, the head on the cockpit,
Oh, yeah. We
gyroscopic.
saw one parked at the outpost thing, but we didn't get to see it fly around,
Yeah,
which
in
is
action,
yeah.
always unfortunate that kind of gets a short shrift. There was like a spotlight on that ship in one of the cartoons. I think Rebels,
Yes.
but I mean that's animation. Hopefully I get to see it. I don't know, in full glory. It was always like my favorite design of all, like those classic A wing, B wing, X wing, Y wing. But
Yeah.
you just see so little of it, in on screen that it's really not much to talk about.
Yeah, it's like the most special of them in terms of like it just looks so funky, but I love the like T cross section and the engine nacelles on the back and the giant gun on the end of the wing. It's really cool. I hope that when this like Starfighter movie with Ryan Gosling comes out that we get a bunch of new ships. It'd be
Yeah,
exciting.
of course. Yeah, the next Star Wars movie literally being called starfighter, you'd think there'd be a
Hmm.
big emphasis on the space combat side of things. So yeah, hopefully that's the case. I don't know, weird kind of manufacturing apparel at the end too, with like the fact that they're doing this bombing run on Nal Hutta, and they can't wait for Mando and Zeb and Grogu to fully clear the radius of the explosion. I
And
mean,
that was a little weird because they had already cleared out all the air defenses. So it's like, oh, what's the what's the time pressure here?
I needed a little bit of mistakes, and I don't know. Just overall, there could have been more intrigue to this movie, a la something like Andor. But I feel like we did adequately get to sort of live in the Star Wars universe, with the amount of time we did spend with this film. But yeah, just as like an overall piece of virtuosic storytelling. It remains to be seen whether like the teaming of Favreau and Filoni can really get there, and like the question of do these guys who are really senior in the ranks of Lucasfilm, you know, really have enthusiasm for bringing in Gilroy for more stuff, because I almost hear rumors that there's almost like some bit of animus between the um, two
Oh.
parties. I mean, or just like indifference, maybe. Like,
Mm.
I mean, obviously, I've had you on to talk about Andor, and like I couldn't be more over the moon about
Yeah.
the storytelling in that series, but it's sort of vibes wise contrasting from the kinds of things that we get from Filoni, which is to me just a little bit too cutesy and fan servicey in many ways.
It definitely feels like Tony Gilroy has a little bit more of the like political streak of things that like George originally was like coming to the series with.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
it is so George too, which is the weird,
yeah.
because Filoni is like the under that may be why there's a bit of a rift, because like Filoni's like, I'm the George guy, not
Hmm.
this pretender.
Yeah. I feel like Filoni is like a product of like the fan culture in a sense. Like I see a lot of the moves he makes. I don't mind Filoni. I like a lot of his stuff, but I think a lot of the moves he makes are like referencing like, oh, like this toy that came out in like the late 90s or whatever. Like let's make this into a vehicle. They'll love it. Everyone will love this. Or like we're going to give, Jar Jar a girlfriend. Like it'll be fun. Let's do it. Let's run with that, you know. He does also do a lot of really fun stuff with like, cross-referencing characters, bringing people back. It does, like, I think he has a little bit more of a handle because he's trying to self-reference constantly of like making like a very tight expanded universe. Whereas I feel like, the Tony Gilroy side of things is much more focused on like, all right, what is this media trying to say? What is the message? Who is involved? Like barely even matters. We'll put a bunch of no-name characters and kill them off in the same show. Like, um, and I think both approaches are fine. They both have created some really good content. I think I tend to vibe more with the Tony Gilroy style for sure. But I would love to see them both still be involved in projects going forward. I don't really know what Jon Favreau's deal is. uh,
I mean, he's a good gun for hire, certainly, but I mean, I as far as he's not, I don't think a writer on the level of like a Tony Gilroy, but I mean, he's done good movies and competent stuff in the past. I got major like um, Lion King and Jungle Book vibes during some of the moments. They're very like just digital creature heavy during some
mm,
moments of this, and like the pastoral sequences on Nal Hutta. just kind of very much felt like the kind of vibe they were going for with those,
Yeah.
live action yet all CGI, depictions of nature in Jungle Book and Lion King.
So I actually know a little bit about this because one of my coworkers worked on Book of Boba Fett. Apparently, um, the swamp was built. That was like a full set that they had, like full scale trees, water, plants, live greenery, and a lot of the fight scenes that take place were on an actual practical stage, along with some of the Baby Yoda scenes, because Baby Yoda is like um, it's a practical puppet animatronic. So I think a surprising amount of the swamp stuff was actually like real stage work, which
Mm.
is really interesting because it's like starting to become very hard to tell what is and what is not like practical, especially background stuff. Um, Whether or not that's just like the way that we light things now, or that it's like a mix of the volume and like the practical trees and whatnot. But um, those were really cool scenes. I think a lot of friends that I watched the film with were like, we would love actually a more like contemplative and like pastoral Star Wars story of like their take was like the most compelling part of the movie was like watching Baby Yoda uh do like his little adventure on the swamp.
Mm. Yeah, I think that section was pretty well received and was, definitely a bit of a contrast from, I don't know, a lot of the typical Star Wars action that you get from a show like The Mandalorian. But yeah, I mean, kind of a slower paced moment, but I guess it was good for the movie to breathe and like, yeah, they did a really good job. Um, Depicting like this environment and it's an alien planet, so you can forgive even if it does look a little artificial because you can't really, it's not something that exists in our reality, but they made it very convincing, of course, and yeah, with a lot of, I mean, they had the budget of a film, so it's not all an artificial volume environment too. So yeah, that makes sense that they would try to build out a decent amount of that to make it look very authentic. I appreciate that they did that, because I enjoyed those sequences as well quite a bit.
I sort of wonder with this movie if this was kind of like rushed for uh green light. There was like that weird there was like so many TV shows announced. Like remember like 3 years ago they were coming out with like we're gonna do a Rogue One TV show, or sorry, Rogue Squadron. We're gonna do the Acolyte 6 seasons. We're gonna do like Lando story like TV show. There was even like a Young Jedi Adventures, but not the animated one. They were gonna do like another one following some like Padawans, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they ended up like cutting a bunch of those. And then there was this like Disney like kind of like leadership shakeup. And I wonder if they came to a point like corporate style where they're like, oh man, we like really need a movie
Mm.
right here. And I wonder if they took this storyline, which was maybe slated to be like TV show episodes, and then like gave it just like, all right, take that story, movie budget, it's a movie now. It sort of felt like the writing was maybe on like a TV like timeline, or they just used the TV show writers for it. Because the pacing felt very like episodic in the movie. Um,
Which
but
I didn't,
everything,
yeah, I didn't mind that. I mean, but yeah,
no,
yeah, it
I mean it
felt.
definitely
Mhm,
works with the rest of what we've seen Mando in, because he's in all of these like very serialized like episode formats.
mhm.
But it didn't feel like a departure from that either.
Yeah, I kind of like that. This story was kind of more of a theatrical length in and out versus trying to drag something like this out over, you know, 8 episodes or so. But I know, like the uh, origin of when it just I guess would all have to do with the timeline. I mean, the creators, the writers, because that's, I think, just a cheap complaint about this film that a lot of people have is like, oh, it felt like a TV show cut up in or cut into a movie because there are so many distinctive kind of movements throughout the film where, yeah, it's like, you know, it totally, breaks from one sequence to the next, where you've got the stuff on the Shikari planet, and then, you go to Nal Hutta, and the, kidnapping of Mando, and so, Grogu alone, like it can really be broken up into these episodic segments. But I mean, sometimes it's nice to have a movie that kind of just flows in these, this sort of comforting sort of sequential way. And I for whatever reason, it didn't bother me as much as I kind of noticed that it felt like it very much could have been, and probably a lot of the outlines were sort of developed for the show. But I think the decision to release a movie was early enough along in the process to where they were probably very, nascent ideas. And if it were to be a full season of the show, there would have been a lot of other things kind of incorporated into this story, or it could have looked totally different. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I think that for me, it's more of like I don't mind the episodic nature of the movie, but I do feel like it was unconnected from the rest of the like Star Wars like cinema universe.
Yeah.
Like it felt more connected to the TV show properties, which might just be Dave Filoni's involvement, being that's his specialty. But as far as like the movie kind of like slate, it feels like an outlier.
There have been so many different things announced and then canceled, or things fall apart for one reason or another. And I was trying to look up people who worked on Andor who are continuing to work in Star Wars, and I felt like there was maybe one in particular, and I figured out who it was. This writer Beau Willimon, who worked on Andor. He was a writer and possibly director too. Anyways, I think just a writer. Was tapped to write a script for the Dawn of the Jedi film. So I was trying to clarify whether it was that he was hired onto, or if the upcoming Starfighter film maybe had some connectivity to Andor, but it looks like it doesn't. So unfortunately, no.
I do wonder I mean, I don't know. I wonder what the writer's room kind of looks like in Star Wars, like Lucasfilm Center. Are writers shared between projects? Because like I assume it takes a lot of like training and like research time to get like a writer up to speed on like like you can't just take anyone off the street and be like, all right, here's like the Star Wars universe and like 60 years of lore to like catch up on. So like are they kept in like like are they shared between projects? Are they constantly like referencing each other, or are are they literally just getting new writers and then being like, we'll figure out the like lore implications of things, just write something? I don't know.
Yeah, each new production has like its own independent development team of writers, and these people get hired on not necessarily because of any previous affiliation to Star Wars. However, if you're working high up within the film industry, most likely Star Wars has been an influence on you at some point.
Sure. Yeah.
So most directors working today have like a working knowledge, or if you're a writer and you're at the level of Hollywood screenwriter, of course you're going to know like the main the broad strokes of a Star War, but also the the what you're referring to, kind of getting really more into the weeds of like what makes a Star War a Star War, is handled by an internal writing team at Lucasfilm. The like I think they call it the Lucasfilm Story Trust, and
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
they are in charge of bringing the people working on the development of these new projects up to speed. Um,
Oh,
so
so they are on all the time, and they're also overseeing like the book and like comics and like that sort of thing, I'm assuming.
yeah, like they are, yeah, kept apprised of all the development,
Interesting.
yeah, within like comics and stuff. And I mean, no one can probably be on top of everything, but
Yeah, it's a lot of content.
and that's why they got a few different people. Pablo Hidalgo is a famous
Mm,
name. I think Leland Shee is still there, and like, these keepers of the holocron uh,
mm,
are consultants, and often get you know relied upon by the new auteurs who get brought into the Star Wars fold. I know Ryan Johnson particularly like would laud the work that the Story Trust um, you know assisted him with during well, I mean, of course he's the one who generates the most controversy whenever you bring up the new era of Star Wars, but he was the most collaborative with Lucasfilm, arguably, of any of the
mm.
more recent directors. Of course, up until like John Favreau and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Interesting. All right.
with Mando.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely like excited to see where the Mando and Grogu like story continues from this point. I guess going into the movie thinking it was going to be like an end of some sort, but really it felt more like a reset of, yeah, he got his ship back, he got his gun back, he got Grogu back, you know. So if they end up making more seasons of the show, it'll be fun to, I wonder where it all, ties up at eventually.
Well,
Um,
and it might have been seen as like an odd decision to do this when we've got the 50th anniversary next year, and a more like originally directed towards a cinematic or a theatrical audience type of project with Starfighter that isn't a spin-off of a TV show or a Disney Plus show. Uh,
mhm.
this this film will of course get a lot of attention on Disney Plus. It underperformed at the box office, but like that's just a lot of people assuming that if they're interested, they'll just watch it on Disney Plus,
Hmm.
or they haven't caught up with all the existing lore behind Mandalorian and Grogu, and it wasn't, and of course, yeah, it wasn't anything groundbreaking for Star Wars either, which is kind of unfortunate. There's just a lot of the same old kind of iconography recycled, and
Hmm.
I mean that's a big part of Star Wars. We love we love our um, yeah, it's not slop, but just like the fact that
Give me my Star Wars slop.
it's well, it's like poetry. It rhymes, a more elegant way of describing the
Yeah.
symmetry that you see. But then, with is this sort of taking the wind out of a more grandiose celebration next year with the 50th? And I see it more as like a primer. This is just getting us warmed up for the 50th. And we've got Starfighter, we've got the re-release of the original trilogy in like
Hmm.
their restored, like technically, but like not altered versions. Um,
Hmm.
so like, I mean, that's all going to be a big push and a lot of fun next year. But like, I think it's totally cool that they went ahead with this and just try to get something back into theaters, kind of test the waters.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned the box office metrics. It is curious to me about how much of like those numbers are real these days, not in terms of like the data being wrong, but of like, is box office really like a good metric to be measuring like how much interest there is or the long-term like effect of a movie? Because I feel like so many people, as you mentioned, are just like, well, it's coming to streaming, I'll stream it there, or I'll watch
Mhm.
it on the plane. I think the hype and impetus to like see things in the theater kind of boiled down to like, I value this movie so much I want to see it in 3D or Dolby or whatever. Um, and like other movies that like are have recently been like underperforming quite drastically at the box office. Like Supergirl was just
Yeah,
a announcement this weekend.
Masters of the Universe.
Um, Masters of the Universe, yeah, which I mean these are like summer blockbuster titles that should be doing really, really well.
Yeah, so
It's
by that metric, yeah, Mando totally did fine.
yeah.
Yeah. So some cool, like, good, like, positive signs at the box office too with certain things, but things that are much lesser scale than
Hmm.
a blockbuster project like, yeah, Mando, or what was the Supergirl, or
Masters of the Universe. Yeah, I mean, like
yeah,
Obsession and Backrooms both did like crazy good numbers
yeah.
this last month.
I've seen Obsession twice. I love it.
That was good. It was really good.
Backroom
Yeah.
is good too. I want to see that again at some point. Have you seen that?
Yes. Samar and I have been playing the game of Backrooms since watching the movie. It's a lot of fun.
What did Smart think of Mando?
Samara fell asleep. She's not the biggest Star Wars fan these days. I think she had quite the complaint of like it was just there just wasn't that much interesting things going on. And I think she really responded to the like lack of like uh big sweeping changes in the universe or like, it I think to her it kind of felt like same old same old. So it was ultimately tune outable film.
Yeah. And I guess I was going to note call back to Solo with the species
Yeah.
portrayed by Marty Scorsese.
What is
Some
that? The not the Anzellans,
the
the
four armed, like, monkey guy.
yeah.
What's the name of that species? But yeah, Martin Scorsese alien. um, yeah, as a Ardenian.
Ardenians, that's right.
Yeah.
Rio Durant was the solo
Oh,
character.
yeah. He was like third build in the. Of course, you don't really have pre-credits for Star Wars, and I can see why, because you've got obviously Pedro Pascal, but then like his two stunt doubles, or the on-camera suit actor for the most part, being the he's like the descendant of John Wayne, Brandon Wayne, I think is like the
Hmm.
grandson of John Wayne, and then the primary like stunt, uh, basically like a choreographer, the Lakeith, or what's his name? Not I was going to say Lakeith Stanfield. That's not it. Um, but yeah, the Mandalorian stunt performer, um, Lateef Crowder.
Mm.
Um, and then I think the next one was Jeremy Allen White.
Hmm.
Rhoda. I thought I like that character. Fun to have a different take on a hut.
Yeah, yeah, that was fun. I heard a lot of pushback from older folks that I've talked to of like, what the heck? Huts are supposed to be fat slobs. What's this one with abs and stuff? And I'm like, actually, I think that's pretty cool. I like that there's like Huts are supposed to be fearsome in the EU at least, of like, they are scary guys who manage to like create empires. Like they gotta have something under all there. It's
Yeah,
fun to see them fight too.
I yeah, I don't think it was ever intended that huts were like these invertebrate.
Biologically slobbish and
Well, they're Slavish, but they're not like literal mollusks where they're invertebrates. You know, they lack a backbone
Mhm.
or a skeletal structure of any kind. Like they have skeletons, I imagine, just very kind of simple, limited ones.
Yeah.
But do have like muscle tone and stuff if they and can manipulate that clearly, and the
Mhm.
idea of a muscular hut actually isn't unprecedented either in Star Wars, if you
Mm.
look at the comics and other material. So nothing, not breaking any major new ground other than, yeah, it's a friendly hut, which we don't see.
Yeah. It was fun to see them like figure out like, all right, how does a hut mobile like how does hut mobility work? You know, and they're like, oh, okay, he kind of slithers, but he uses his arms too. Like
Yeah.
that it was fun to see those puzzles get solved on screen.
Yeah. No, I don't know any other. Let's see, we mentioned Marty Scorsese, but
Hmm.
maybe transition to another acclaimed filmmaker of
Ooh,
that
here we go.
generation too. If I don't know if you wanted to just touch on Spielberg briefly and some other theatrical, and that movie actually didn't underperform either at all or too badly.
Oh, okay.
Like it wasn't. Yeah, it was okay. So, have you seen like Spielberg's most recent movies? I would imagine you have the Fablemans and West Side Story.
I saw West Side Story. I did not see Fablemans.
Okay, yeah, Fablemans was kind of barely a whisper at the
Hmm.
box office, um, but yeah, I mean, so in that sense, it's not that impressive that Disclosure Day did, you know, well, it had 44.5 million in North America. That's, I mean, because like it's an appealing premise. I just don't know if it's what audiences were expecting because it's kind of a bit of a trip of a film, like not the most conventional type of commercial story. Did you find it like I thought it was? It was kind of a bizarre movie, but great for like an artist like Spielberg to put out something like this.
I felt like the concept was really cool and interesting. I liked the concept a lot. I felt like the movie felt a little disjointed, and it was definitely like a puzzle box movie of like, all right, what's going on? Why is all this weird stuff happening? And once you got to the end of the puzzle and everything was like kind of made,
Mm-hmm.
made sense. It was sort of like, oh, that was it. Okay, cool. Um, as I explained to a couple other friends, I was like, I really enjoyed the movie. I liked it a lot. I don't know if I need to see it again. You know, I think it's been solved for me. So I'm like, okay, cool. I also feel like the action sort of took place like the story was like earlier than I think would have been most interesting for like the audience to see. They sort of did all of this like preset to like the actual day of disclosure, whereas like me coming in as an audience, if they had started the movie with like um uh the like
Mass dissemination of, yeah.
yeah, the mass information reveal, and then like how does the Earth like deal with this? Do we like talk to the aliens? Is this more of like an arrival situation? I felt like that would have been more compelling in terms of like what I thought the movie was going to be. But I really liked the concept of like these like benevolent aliens trying to like speak to us through these like animals and these dreams and stuff. It was very interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I It makes sense for the relationship from or the relationship of the aliens with humans to be pretty abstracted
Hmm.
because they're creatures from another play another region of the universe, and probably don't have a lot of similarities to us in many ways. So like, yeah, it's all very mystical, and like
Yeah.
this movie felt almost like a sermon in some ways. Like there's a certain religious tenor to everything here, and yeah, I mean, that if you're not going like the Independence Day route, then you're gonna take maybe more of an abstract kind of thematic metaphysical route, as Spielberg does here, and has sort of blended the two approaches to varying degrees throughout previous works dealing with
Yeah.
aliens, Close Encounters, E.T., War of the Worlds, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and then now and this being this is the
What
most metaphysical. You would agree?
was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull Spielberg or Lucas?
He directed. Yeah, Spielberg directed Crystal.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I a friend told me that there was an interview with Spielberg that was like, "Do you believe aliens are real?" And that he was like, "Yes, I believe they're out there, and I hope they're benevolent because I hope they're better than we are." Which I don't know if that's a real interview that he had, but that would explain a lot of his like interest in alien movies. And the fact that they all tend to be like, oh, okay, these aliens are pretty cool good guys, other than World of the Worlds. But um
And I think Spielberg, he loves pop culture. He loves nostalgia. I think
mhm.
for his upbringing, and Lucas as well, like inspired by the matinee serials from their childhood.
Right.
And um, aliens were, of course, a very prominent feature in that type of thing. And, like the Roswell lore and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's all very pulpy. So it makes sense that this would be a subject Spielberg would gravitate to, whether it's like sincerely out of, questioning the legitimacy of the claims and sort of the more conspiratorial aspects of it, or just the iconography of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked the um I liked Emily Blunt's acting. I think that was a really
Yeah,
weird uh character to have to pull off. And
yeah,
I think she did a really good job with. I can imagine like reading the script being like, what what is happening here? But I think she pulled it off really well, and I was actually quite impressed with her ability in this film. um she was really good. I thought the like bad guy was compelling and fun.
mm-hmm.
Um, there were a couple scenes in this movie where it kind of blended the line between like, oh, is this a sci-fi or like a weird horror film? Like the like Catholic church setting and like the demon like possession kind of analogy for the bad guy diving on the main character's girlfriend. um, there are some interesting things there. And I think that like kind of like blurring of like the genres was really fun. I appreciated that.
Yeah,
Um, I feel like Spielberg, I don't know if it's him or his like cinematographer that he hires, but he just has a really fun way of playing with light in his movies, that I find like is kind of like a Spielberg special, like there'll be like shadows on characters' faces in like cool ways, or you'll get like a lot of lens flare from like going past the like slitted windows and stuff.
yeah.
And
Janusz,
I
well, his first collaboration with Spielberg, I'm trying to see, is it Schindler's List? I think, based on, yeah. So Janusz Kaminski, the screen. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just trying
no,
to.
you're good.
Yeah, in 1993. So he's been pretty active with Spielberg. Not everything, but yeah. So that's you know. But sorry, continue.
Oh no, I mean that was kind of the terminus of my thought is that like I really like the way that Spielberg kind of has this ethereal and it has this like ethereal look to it which lends itself really well to these like alien-esque storylines.
Sure. Well, I was almost frustrated the other day watching um, Minority Report for the second time
Mm,
with just how weird that movie looks.
yeah.
It's set in the future, like the 2050s, and everything is just so like blown out, and there are all these like crazy effects of like holographic displays and weird like graphical displays on transparent panes of glass and things like that. You know, transparent TV, see-through TVs, like which is a thing, but I don't know if it'll ever really catch on. Um, but also, yeah, just so many moments where the bloom is just jacked way up to where there is no
Hmm.
definition in the background of some shots because of the bloom, and that was more, I think, a trend too in the early 2000s. You had like really these bizarre color schemes because of the technology, you know, digital editing and softwares where, you know, they could just crank the color settings to be whatever they wanted. And so they just do some really bizarre stuff with that. I'm guessing is
Yeah.
the idea. But I found it kind of annoying with Minority Report. And of course, it's a sci-fi movie, so they're like trying to make it look unique and stuff. So it makes
Oh yeah.
sense that way. But here it wasn't bothering me. It definitely had that ethereal feel, like you said.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, just you know, classic Spielberg, but also like not crazy, you know, action heavy. There's like the sequence of
Hmm.
the train, but also more just contemplative and thought provoking, and more of a treatise on, you know, religion and human nature. You know, like a kind of an odd, yeah, like subject for a big commercial film. I read here that it would need to cross about 300 million at the box office to become profitable, which it
Mm.
very well could do because it's, I think, up hovering around like 200 million as we speak. So yeah,
Mm.
not a bad.
Okay, so
Yeah.
might be on its way. Yeah, I don't think I've ever walked into a movie before where like one of the first lines of like setup dialogue was like the world is at DEF CON 1 and then it like isn't addressed like much else in the movie like the nuclear like imminent war was like a side plot maybe C or D in the like the movie which was very interesting. I don't think a lot of people picked up on it very well though, 'cause
I,
it
I
just wasn't the
yeah,
center stage item.
I certainly didn't, but it was eventually, you know, referenced a few times that there's like this
Hmm.
crisis in, you know, Korea, of course, is, you know,
Right.
the uncontroversial conflict that's been going on for decades, where you can, you know, yeah, you can if you use that as a screenwriting tool, I guess, and not
Yeah.
like, yeah, audiences complaining too much, because I mean, you know, there's like Russia in real life, you know, places like, yeah, Ukraine, Russia, or the Middle East, of course, or, you know, whatever. Oh, China's about to invade Taiwan. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
or yeah,
You
yeah.
lose your whole Chinese box office then if you do that. So
But yeah, Korea is a safe choice, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, and I don't know, just like, yeah, I suppose if you're going to have this frantic circumstance framing your movie around the disclosure of highly sensitive documents, you know, related to aliens, then, you know, maybe there's also other things percolating within, you know, you know, within the broader sociological whirlpool that are kind of, yeah, not putting people on edge to begin with. I don't know. It seems like whenever something big happens, like everything happens at once. When it rains, it pours, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just kind of the world we live in right now, anyways. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It was kind of unnecessary, I thought.
Yeah. I'm also a little interested in, I don't have a major thought about this, I suppose, but I mean, both Spielberg and George are getting up in the years, and I guess there's sort of like a class of director, Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, who all sort of feel like in the same generation, and like I don't think they have too many more like years in movie making before they're probably like retiring or headed out.
Mhm.
um I'm really curious if this is a movie that Spielberg, because like it's towards the end of his career, was this a movie he like really wanted to make, or I'm starting to like be curious about the motivations for these directors of like is this like the magnum opus you were like looking for, or is this just like another movie, now that we're like closing in on the finish line? um
Yeah, I
and,
think, yeah, this was about as good as we could have hoped for, I think, in a late period. Steven Spielberg. George Lucas, I just have no faith he'll end up putting together anything else. I think he's pretty much spent. I don't know. He'd be doing more. Oh, he's got the museum, of course.
Mhm.
That'll be his big contribution.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and of course, like though we did have like the random Coppola film that came out, and that just was a total, you know, squib.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did see that in theaters, but now it's like erased from existence. I don't think it's like streaming anywhere, or it just
Hmm.
distribution wise kind of fell off the face of the map. Yeah. But did you see what's it called, Megalopolis from Coppola?
Oh,
The sport.
no, but I heard it was not very good. Which
Yeah.
is unfortunate because I was actually pretty excited for it. I didn't get around to seeing it, but because Adam Driver was the lead in that one, right?
Yeah, a ton of recognizable people in that movie.
Mm.
But it's like not streaming anywhere. You can't really rent it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of unfortunate that petered out in the way it did. But he hadn't done anything for a while, so it kind of makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of these guys are, who knows what more they'll be making, but they've had such a good legacy that I'm fine with just accepting, and embracing and being grateful for
Yeah,
things that we've got.
definitely. I mean, Spielberg himself is, I think, like was the most profitable director in history or something. Like he's had so many blockbusters. Um, I think he could hang it up tomorrow and I would be like, great career. Amazing. Standout job. Like it would be all right.
Yeah.
And I mean, in contrast, for the same month, we talked about Backroom and Obsession,
Mhm.
both like super young directors, like in their 20s.
Yep.
I wonder if we're about to be headed into an era of like more young directors get a shot at some of these larger budget productions, and maybe we get our next Spielberg and Lucas and all of that coming up the pipe. Um, would be
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah. No, there's plenty of other much younger and active filmmakers out there, but yeah, it's just kind of like um, checking in on the historic great of Steven Spielberg, and does he still have the juice? This was an interesting experience, and yeah, not I'm curious to revisit this film. I like the vibes. It was kind of like a boomer take on the subject, aliens and stuff, but I don't know. It's hard to really. It's such a weird idea of like how do you um try to really credibly envision a world where it is supposed to be like our real world, and as if we've gotten all these things, broadcast out into into our real world, confirming the existence of like aliens and all this stuff. And it's like, how readily would that even be embraced? To what extent is it being covered up? If it were, like, what are and it's all speculative as to, I guess, what this would be like if it were an actual thing. And I suppose that's just the beauty of fiction, right? It's like, you can't take any of this stuff too seriously. Although this is definitely a subject where there are a ton of people who take it very seriously, and it's like, this kind of thing should have happened a long time ago,
Yeah. But the alien powers involve like turning a fire station like invisible. Like it's well in the fantasy sci-fi genre. And it's a fun ride. It was a fun ride.
So I guess the last point I'll make on Disclosure Day is like this emphasis on mainstream media and needing to get this this, I guess, documents package to an actual news station to get broadcast out over television versus just leaving it onto the internet.
Yeah.
And, I saw one commentator say, like, why even bother with that's just a total boomer take, that it needs to be presented, on TV, broadcast news in order to be credible. But I think there is a certain truth. Like, of course, this kind of thing would go out all over the internet and people would be skeptical of it, and it could just get totally suppressed and discounted if that were the case. But like, to also then be definitely confirmed via broadcast news, conventional media, legacy media, and so forth, like that aspect of it, it would be far from guaranteed with this type of leak, and could easily be suppressed because it is so establishment and subject to the whims of the establishment versus the internet, which is more unregulated. So like, you need that that aspect of traditional media offering its if you want to call it legitimacy, even though nowadays people are just as skeptical of the mainstream media as anything else. But yeah, it's important to have both, I think, in this type of instance, versus just the internet or just such and such supposedly credible news source online or on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, it was interesting. A very, I guess, I don't know. It struck me as an optimistic take that, you could take over the news cycle with this story all at once, and that everyone would be like down for the credibility of it. I mean, they did make a point of being like, "Oh, there's so many files. This is for real. This is the one." And maybe that was also like a little bit of a statement on like the media state of like these individuals in the newsroom overriding the local programming and being like, no, this is important. Because you did get a couple scenes of them being like, you're gonna upstage World War III with this thing, and they're like, yeah, do it. Like, we gotta get this out to the people. Which was cool. I think that it was kind of a classic Spielberg, like, optimism moment. Which I was down for. I was down for.
Yeah, listen. You got to listen to each other.
Gotta listen.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't mind just a little bit of, optimism, and that notion. That we can sort of unite over a common shared reality in some, because people have such contrasting views and opinions on so many different things. And, it's almost like we don't occupy the same reality as many of our
Mm-hmm.
fellow human beings. It's like, why, how could that possibly be the case? Don't we all live on the same planet Earth? But I don't know, I guess to some extent, we're all just appendages of this, biosphere, and sometimes one appendage doesn't know, the left hand, is unaware of what's going on on the right, and it's just like we're all kind of disconnected in many ways. But that shouldn't be our aspiration. We should try to be more embodied, more connected as people, with each other, with the world. I mean, this is the world that birthed us. It's the world we should try to preserve and celebrate. So if we just try to, or if we tend to totally disconnect from certain aspects of it, I think it's to our detriment.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was a good message there, especially in terms of like trying to overcome those barriers, and like there are some things which humanity should all be interested in deeply. And like, what are those things? Are aliens is clearly one of them, but maybe there are some other things that, we could
Yeah.
all come together over.
Yeah.
Or maybe just aliens. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it would seem natural that there are other forms of intelligence on the level of, our human cognition, sapience, that also exist within our universe, like because of how massive it is.
Yeah.
Whether, and even maybe spiritual forms of intelligence too. Like that's always been kind of the understanding or the assumption.
I did like the that line from the nun where she was like asking her about like, oh, like can there be like, are we the only ones? Like God only made us, and she was like, we're God's creation on earth or whatever. I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, people like to argue till they're blue in the face about, text from the Bible and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Because it says something, maybe someone, even if it didn't say on the Bible, just on earth, if that wasn't like a caveat that,
Yeah.
I mean, it is, it is this thing that, are you really going to die on the hill of, it is fully exhaustive and fully mutually exclusive from any other, purported source of truth that you can find within our world. If you are from, that tradition, Christianity, particularly someone who believes in the Bible, and like, just because you believe in the Bible, does that have to mean at the expense of all else? Because ultimately it's going to be your interpretation, your specific sort of encoding of the Bible, whether, it's fully accurate or not. It's always filtered through our own, our own brains.
Yeah. Is your truth that you interpret from this document supersede all other truth? Or, is there room for other people's interpretations too? Yeah. Lots of.
Yeah, no, and of course, yeah, once you approach that territory with someone in terms of like trying to debate them, you just kind of got to disengage because it's not productive.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're trying to like come up against someone's like view of both reality, morality, and like truth itself. It's hard to engage on that level that's not at some extent like destructive to one of those things. So yeah.
Yeah, you're just going to end up, turning to drugs and alcohol and putting your brain on those kind of, just
I need some vices.
Yeah, it's going to send you down a weird path if you try to do too much in that. I speak from experience. No, but no. So thank you, Elliot, for coming on and chatting. This has been super fun, just kind of shooting the breeze about these these fun topics, pop culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like was there? I mean, just genres. These are sort of just very broad pieces of furniture that have existed. Yeah, in our sort of media ecosystem ever since we were kids, and it's kind of fun to get a sense of how we are sort of still engaging with these things, now that we're older and in our 30s. And yeah, it's always an evolving process. So thank you for joining me on this. And yeah, it's a fun little journey.
For sure. Thanks for having me on. I'm always down to talk about aliens, whether they're happy Spielberg ones or crazy Star Wars guys. It's always a good time.
Yeah. Independence Day was always one of my. We are approaching Independence Day as we record this. I'll just note that it has always been one of my favorite films. It has its critics, but I'm curious if that was very much a staple for you, because it might be a little before your time, but for me, it's like one all-timer.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. My family would watch Independence Day on July 4th. That was our
Yeah.
that was our family tradition for the longest time. So yeah, quite familiar. Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, solid cast. Yeah.
Yeah. That's always the scale against which I measure all other like alien related movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, of course, and like the Ridley Scott Alien and subsequent films there too, because a lot of those are really solid. But in terms of just like a broad sweeping action, and like, yeah, and it's also a disaster movie, which is fun, and it's like a successor to Star Wars with like we were complaining about the lack of aerial combat in the like there's a ton of that in Independence Day, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
And the sequel really sucks, so that is unfortunate. I mean, it didn't have Will Smith, so it couldn't have been. There was like a
couldn't have been. Yeah.
But also, I was fully gratified when it came into the potential for a Independence Day sequel with the release of one certain film, and that was Rogue One, Star Wars story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because thematically, a lot of the same things, like this world sort of destroying weapon, and you had like the Death Star unleashing its limited yield laser on the planet. I mean, it just gave me all the same vibes, and like the destruction scenes in it. It was like, oh gosh, yes, this is totally making up. Yeah, the disappointing sequel. So I'm not, as much as I love that original Independence Day, that opinion isn't marred whatsoever, thankfully, by anything that came later.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to take the first movie and be like, this is it in my head canon.
Exactly. All right, I'll let you go. Thank you again, Elliot, and look forward to chatting with you again. And say hi to Samara. You, of course, my brother-in-law in California, and I'm up here in northern Minnesota. I'm Philip, host of the Thoughtcast, conversations about animation. Elliot, I don't know, before we sign off, did you want to add any else final notes, or let people know who you are if you want to share any social media or anything like that?
Sure. My name's Elliot. I'm Philip's brother-in-law. I live in Los Angeles. I work in the movie industry doing props. You can find me on the internet at Elamundo. That's pretty much anywhere I am. That's my tag. So yeah, come give me a follow if you like, and we'll be on the internet together.
All right. Podcast.com. Yeah. Streaming on various podcast platforms. So thank you for listening, Thoughtcast. And we had the assignment on our obsession episode of what would be your wish for the One Wish Willow. And well, I decided that my wish would be for you to have a magical day, have a wonderful week, and warm hugs.